In the palace, right in front of the Empress, the Emperor was openly showing affection for a multitude of concubines. The Empress felt disgusted by this blatant display of debauchery, but could only swallow her rage. In 179 CE, Emperor Go-Nam-Mu ascended to the throne. His wife, Lady Wu-He, was crowned Empress. After becoming emperor, he launched a prolonged war to reclaim territories lost to the Han dynasty during the previous reign. While he was away fighting, the Empress took charge of the government. Wu-He was a careful and meticulous woman, possessing both strategic brilliance and decisive leadership, which ensured the stability of the kingdom during his absence. One day, a court official submitted a petition proposing the abolishment of the relief system. This system allowed impoverished citizens to borrow rice during the spring and repay it in the autumn. However, these officials argued that if the state was too generous with its people, they wouldn't learn to be frugal. Even the head minister couldn't stand up to the pressure from these officials. Yet, the Empress remained composed and defiant. She glared down at the officials and firmly declared that the relief system would absolutely not be abolished. She then sternly ordered the two arrogant heads of the families to kneel before her. The Emperor's constant absence on the battlefield left a void in the royal authority. Many high-ranking officials eyed the throne. The Empress knew that the fate of the Emperor's reign depended on his safe return from the war. So, she and the head minister used a chessboard to simulate the battlefield, strategizing about the Emperor's campaign. After a heated exchange of moves, the Empress concluded that the Emperor was destined to return victorious. Meanwhile, the situation at the border took a sudden turn. The enemy launched a fierce attack, putting the Emperor in a precarious position. A fortune teller predicted to the Emperor that he would reclaim lost territory in this battle. Inspired by this prophecy, the Emperor decided to launch a surprise attack directly at the enemy's stronghold. Though he was facing an uphill battle, his courage and cunning prevailed. The Emperor captured the enemy leader on the battlefield and secured victory. News of the triumph reached the capital quickly. The Empress meticulously prepared for the Emperor's return, applying makeup and dressing elegantly. Her sister, the head lady-in-waiting, personally helped her adorn herself with a pair of delicate earrings. A servant announced the Emperor's return to the palace. Hearing this, Wu-He's normally stoic demeanor softened, and a youthful smile bloomed on her face. A little while later, Wu-He went to the Emperor's chambers only to find him surrounded by naked women who were catering to his every whim. Wu-He felt uneasy, but tried to avoid eye contact. The Emperor, oblivious to the Empress's discomfort, ordered the concubines to continue their ministries. Seeing that the Emperor's wounds had been treated, Wu-He coldly turned and left. The Emperor, upon seeing the Empress depart, ordered the concubines to stop and leave. The head minister then appeared, revealing that it had been his idea to orchestrate the scene. He explained that he was trying to protect the Empress. If word reached the Emperor's traitor that he was engaged with these women, they would assume that he and the Empress were at odds. In that situation, the Emperor would have the perfect opportunity to enact his plan. To protect his beloved, the Emperor had to feign compliance. Despite this humiliation, Wu-He continued to serve the Emperor wholeheartedly. A banquet was to be held in the main hall, and if the court officials learned of the Emperor's injuries, they would surely cause trouble. So, during the banquet, Wu-He remained silent about the Emperor's wounds. However, the officials were astute and quickly pieced together the truth. Some even confronted Wu-He, speculating that the Emperor's inability to attend the banquet implied a grave injury, perhaps even a threat to his life. The officials began to argue amongst themselves, and once again, Wu-He found herself at the center of a storm. Unexpectedly, the Emperor entered the main hall. He knew of the court's machinations and acted as if nothing was amiss. He raised a cup of wine, loudly toasting the soldiers who had sacrificed their lives. His words silenced the room. Worried about the Emperor's wounds, Wu-He urged him to return to his chambers and rest, assuring him that she would handle everything. But he refused, knowing that if he left, the Empress would again be targeted. Soon after, a court official submitted a petition, arguing that while the Emperor had returned victorious, his future was still uncertain. He had no heir, and in the event of his death, a storm of power struggles would engulf the court. Therefore, he advised the Emperor to dethrone the Empress and choose a new one. The Emperor, however, was determined to protect Wu-He. He demanded that the official withdraw his petition and declared that he would address the matter of the Empress's position later. After the Emperor left the main hall, the official who had made the petition began to mock Wu-He, urging her to gracefully step aside. The Empress glared at him in defiance, but remained silent. The other officials then began to whisper amongst themselves. They knew that upon the Emperor's death, his brothers would surely vie for the throne. The officials started to plan how to use this opportunity to install a member of their own family as the new Empress. They even decided to hold a meeting between the leading families. If they all agreed, the Emperor would be forced to concede to their demand for the Empress's removal. Seeing the urgency of the situation, Wu-He was deeply troubled. The head minister, understanding the Empress's distress, invited her to play chess once again. On the chessboard, Wu-He was defeated. The head minister asked the Empress if she wanted to give up, but she was still calm and confident, knowing there was still a chance to turn the tide. Her composure and unwavering belief in her own abilities showed that she was prepared for any challenge. After their game, the Emperor revealed his plan to Wu He. To protect her, he decided to dethrone her before the scheming officials made their move. He had also secretly arranged for her to be taken out of the palace. She would be sent far away, where no one could find her. It was the only way he could guarantee her safety. Faced with the Emperor's difficult decision, Wu He's heart filled with sorrow. She thought back to their days together watching birds, and to their first meeting, years ago. He was still a young prince then, the second son of Go Nam Mu. During a banquet, the young prince was bullied by a stranger. Wu He, still a girl then, intervened by shooting an arrow, saving the prince. After Wu He left, the prince asked his bodyguard about the girl who had saved him. He learned she was from the Hu family of the north. Wu He was unlike any other girl. She loved horseback riding and archery. She devoured books on military strategy, and she had grand ambitions. Her sister, on the other hand, was a sheltered woman, shallow and obsessed with marrying a prince and becoming empress. The royal family had arranged a marriage between the prince and Wu He's sister, but she refused. Everyone thought the prince would never inherit the throne, and her dream of becoming empress would vanish if she married him. Wu He's uncle, her father's brother, analyzed the situation. Rejecting this match would bring disaster upon the entire family. To protect them, Wu He volunteered to marry the prince in her sister's place. After making her decision, Wu He went to the harsh frontier lands to become the prince's wife. That was the first time she held the prince's hand. He was stationed at the border, and despite the unforgiving conditions, Wu He fell in love with him. They rode horses and shot arrows through the snow, and embraced each other in the biting cold. Now, time had flown by, and the prince had unexpectedly become emperor. Wu He became empress. Her sister still harbored resentment. She believed that if Wu He hadn't taken her place, the throne would have been hers. Driven by a thirst for power, she used her position as the head lady in waiting to gain access to the palace. One night, while the emperor was bathing, she seduced him, trying to take advantage of his vulnerability. But the emperor, seeing through her act, coldly ordered her to leave. Furious, she stormed back to her room, taking her rage out on the furniture. Just then, a fortune teller appeared, offering her a potion that would make men fall deeply in love. She had foreseen that the sister would become empress someday, and she wanted to strike a deal. Once the sister became empress, she would make the fortune teller the high priestess. The sister, without hesitation, agreed. After receiving the potion, the sister carried out her plan, slipping it into the emperor's wine. The fortune teller also gave her a drug drink. The potion overwhelmed the sister, and she found herself entangled with the fortune teller in a passionate embrace. The next morning, she went to the emperor's chambers, eager to share another intimate night with him. But as she approached the door, she heard the worried voice of the physician calling out to the emperor. Then, the emperor's guards arrived, discovering that he had passed away. The head minister rushed to the emperor's chambers and confirmed his death by checking his pulse. To prevent the court officials from exploiting the situation and seizing power, the head minister ordered a lockdown. No one, except the empress, was allowed to reveal the emperor's death. The emperor's sister, hiding outside the palace, heard the news of his demise. Back in her room, she poured the remaining potion into a fish tank. She watched in horror as the fish died instantly. The fortune teller had told her only a drop was needed, but she'd poured in several to be sure. The thought that she might have poisoned the emperor sent her into a panic. The empress, upon hearing the news, raced to the emperor's chambers. Overwhelmed with grief at the loss of her beloved, she couldn't hold back her tears. But quickly, she channeled her grief into her role as empress, regaining her composure. She ordered an investigation to determine if the emperor died from his wounds or if he had been murdered. The emperor's death had shaken the Wu He family, who were already precariously positioned. Her father and uncle, fearing the worst, began searching for a way to secure their survival. They planned to use the emperor's personal army as leverage, hoping it would protect them and the empress. The head minister warned them that once a new emperor ascended, the army would swear allegiance to him. Their plan was hopeless. The head minister advised the empress to flee, to escape the mire altogether. But Wu He refused to retreat. The head minister, seeing no other option, suggested a bold strategy, the tradition of marriage by proxy. If the emperor died, his brother would inherit his position and marry his widow. Considering the current situation, the throne was likely to pass to the emperor's younger brother, the third prince. The head minister proposed that Wu He marry the third prince. This would protect her position and guarantee the family's survival. After everyone left, Wu He thought back to the emperor's final words. After you leave the palace, you'll have to rely on yourself. Her eyes hardened, reflecting the steel in her resolve. For her own survival and the protection of her family, she decided to follow the head minister's advice and marry the third prince. To keep the emperor's death a secret, the head minister locked down the palace, forbidding anyone from entering or leaving until dawn. But they couldn't keep it hidden forever, so the head minister hatched a plan. He insisted that the Empress must meet with the third prince within 12 hours, before the meeting of the families early the next morning, and the prince must be brought back to the palace. After finalizing his plan, the head minister approached the captain of the emperor's personal guard. He revealed his strategy and instructed the captain to ensure the empress's safety. That evening, the captain found a swift chariot driver in the marketplace and arranged for him to take the empress to the third prince's estate. Before they left, the head minister expressed his concern, having heard rumors of the prince's brutality. He feared that the empress would endure unimaginable suffering if she were to marry him. But Wu He was undeterred, asking him only one question: "Are you truly on my side?" The head minister nodded, promising to protect her with his life. The head minister and the empress had known each other since they were children. Years before, Go Nam Mu had hosted a chess tournament. A young Pa So, the head minister, had defeated many older competitors before facing Wu He, who was disguised as a boy. After a tense match, Wu He emerged victorious. The young prince was impressed by Wu He's skills and her compassion, both of which were evident in their game. But then, Wu He's father arrived at the palace. To avoid being recognized, Wu He ran away, and Pa So chased after her. He tripped and accidentally dropped her hat. Seeing the mischievous boy, he realized that it was a beautiful, intelligent girl. The prince watched as the disguised girl ran off, his eyes full of admiration, while Pa So was entranced by the hair ornament he held in his hand. Now, as the empress prepared to leave for the third prince's estate, her uncle pulled her sister aside and warned her to make sure Wu He and the prince consummated the marriage. Before departing, Wu He whispered something to her father. As the empress's carriage left the palace, the head minister ordered a complete lockdown, barring anyone from leaving until morning. The empress's departure from the palace had to remain a secret, but with so many eyes and ears, the court officials quickly got wind of her escape. The head minister's agents intercepted a flock of pigeons carrying messages, finding a cryptic letter attached to one. It revealed that the emperor had died, and the empress was planning to marry the third prince. It also contained a request for an assassin. After reading the letter, the scheming official who received a similar message let out a sinister laugh. He realized the empress's journey would be fraught with danger. Under the captain's protection, the empress approached the third prince's territory. But while resting during their journey, they were ambushed by assassins. The captain and his men fought valiantly, sacrificing themselves to protect the empress. As the empress, Wu He drew her sword, her movements swift and deadly as she fought off the attackers. Eventually, they defeated all the assassins, but the empress understood that their presence proved that the court officials knew of the emperor's death. Time was of the essence. The empress ordered them to continue their journey without rest. They traveled day and night, eventually arriving at a dense forest. But there, they found the horrifying sight of countless corpses, all victims of the third prince. Unlike the emperor, the third prince was a cruel and bloodthirsty man. He often carried out these massacres to instill fear and ensure obedience among his people. The empress and her company galloped into the third prince's palace. While waiting for the prince to receive her, she looked at a vial of poison she carried and thought about the past. When the emperor had first ascended the throne and Wu He became empress, he had given her this vial, warning her to drink it if ever captured by the enemy. Now, staring at the poison, she contemplated her options. Shortly after, the third prince arrived. But the empress didn't reveal the emperor's death. Instead, she used this opportunity to gauge his ambition and see if he was planning to seize the throne. The prince, unaware of her true intentions, played along, desperately trying to conceal his own yearning for power. After their conversation under the moonlight, Wu He decided to leave, determined to find another prince to fulfill the marriage agreement. The captain warned her that if she went to another prince's territory that night, she wouldn't be able to return to the palace before dawn. As they stood beside a lake, the sight of countless dead bodies floating on the surface hardened Wu He's resolve. She would never let a tyrant like the third prince become emperor. After the empress left, the head minister investigated the emperor's death and discovered poison in his food. To find the culprit, the head minister released the royal physician from prison, demanding he investigate who had poisoned the emperor. The emperor had held the head minister in high regard. The head minister came from humble beginnings, and despite his talent, his background only allowed him to work as a farmer. It was the emperor who recognized his potential, lifting him from obscurity and appointing him as the head minister. This was a powerful position, second only to the emperor himself. Many officials had protested the emperor's decision, arguing that the head minister should be chosen by the leading families. But the emperor, drawing his sword, threatened the officials, declaring that he would eliminate anyone who dared to defy him. His unwavering commitment and fearlessness had ensured that the head minister was in place. The head minister discreetly investigated the emperor's death. The royal physician, after examining the body, concluded that the emperor had died from poisoning. Apart from the physician, only the fortune teller had the knowledge to concoct such a poison. Furthermore, the physician discovered that the poison was derived from lily of the valley, a flower grown exclusively in the palace gardens. Someone within the palace walls had poisoned the emperor. The head minister ordered a search of the chambers of everyone who had entered the emperor's rooms, searching for any remaining lily of the valley. He personally went to find the fortune teller. The fortune teller denied being responsible, claiming her potions were not fatal. Though the head minister didn't say anything, the fortune teller saw through the veil of time. In the night sky, the star representing the country was disappearing. She knew the emperor was dead, and warned the head minister. 3 stars that protected the star of the emperor were fading too. One represented the head minister, another represented the Empress, and the last one she couldn't identify. That night, at the third prince's estate, the Empress was preparing to leave. The emperor's sister, haunted by guilt, wandered the courtyard, consumed by visions of the emperor's death. In her delirium, she thought she saw the fortune teller, who had prophesied her rise to power. To become empress, the sister had devised a plan. She wanted to marry into the Ha-Debu clan, one of the 5 royal families. If someone from that family ever became emperor, she would have a chance to become the new empress. Under the cover of night, she sent a letter to the Ha-Debu clan, admitting to the emperor's death and the empress's marriage plans. She offered them the empress in exchange for a marriage into their family. The Ha-Debu clan leader, sensing an opportunity to seize the throne, agreed. That night, he sent a messenger to the third prince. The messenger informed the prince of the emperor's death and the empress's true purpose for being there. But just as he learned the truth, the third prince discovered that the empress and her company had vanished. Under the captain's protection, the empress had discreetly escaped and was now heading to the next prince's territory before the third prince realized what had happened. Knowing that the empress had chosen a different prince, the third prince was furious and enraged. The messenger tried to reason with the prince, promising to fully support his bid for the throne in exchange for sharing power with the Ha-Debu clan. The third prince, a cunning man, knew he had to secure the empress. If she teamed up with another prince, his chances of becoming emperor would significantly decrease. He sent for the White Tiger tribe, known for their ability to track prey in the dark. That night, the empress continued her journey without rest, heading for the next prince's estate. But the White Tiger tribe caught up to them, and a thrilling chase unfolded in the darkness. The tribe attacked fiercely. Seeing the chariot driver about to be struck by an arrow, the empress leaped from her carriage and shielded him, facing the oncoming attack. The White Tiger tribe lowered their bows, ceasing their pursuit. They wanted to capture the empress alive. To escape the enemy, the empress ordered her driver to take the smaller, less traveled roads. He navigated the carriage through the dense forest. At that same moment, the third prince was still debating the messenger's offer. If he married the empress, he would lose the support of his father-in-law and his family. But if he didn't marry her, the crown prince would surely seize the opportunity to claim the throne. The third prince and the crown prince both harbored resentment over the emperor's decision to bestow the throne upon his younger brother. Years ago, before the emperor's death, he had summoned his sons. The crown prince, being the eldest, was the rightful heir. He had assumed the throne was his for the taking. But to his surprise, the emperor chose to pass the throne to his brother, the second son. Furious, the crown prince stormed off. When the second son ascended the throne, the third prince pretended to submit, but he secretly harbored ambitions of his own. He planned to use force to take the throne from his brother. Now, to secure the throne, the third prince met with the crown prince's wife under the cloak of night. While making love, he cruelly killed her. He believed that no other woman could be with him if he was to marry the empress. His advisor reminded him that to become emperor, he needed to marry the empress and gain the support of the 5 great families. The third prince saw the wisdom in this, ordering his advisors to travel north and secure the support of the mounted warriors, a formidable force known for their indomitable spirit. They were a game-changer in crucial times. The fifth prince, who was sent north by the emperor to keep a watchful eye on the mounted warriors and prevent them from rebelling, was also currently in the north. Unlike the other princes, the fifth prince deeply admired and respected the emperor. He swore his loyalty to his older brother, unaware of the emperor's death. That night, a clan from the outskirts called Don Bai received a message. Learning of the emperor's demise, the clan's matriarch, a powerful woman, erupted in laughter. Years ago, the emperor's ancestors had seized their territory. Now, driven by the desire to reclaim what was lost, the matriarch gathered her people and horses, heading towards Chumo. Meanwhile, several clan leaders were quietly plotting, scheming to dethrone Empress Wu He and take the throne for themselves. But the matriarch unexpectedly arrived with her army, demanding they abandon their plans to assassinate the empress. One clan leader refused, and the matriarch immediately killed him on the spot. The remaining leaders, terrified, knelt down and begged for mercy. Shortly after, the matriarch received word that the assassination attempt had failed. The head minister, determined to find the emperor's killer, had ordered the guards to search the palace. The fortune teller sensed something was amiss and sent her followers to investigate. They reported back that a strange atmosphere permeated the palace, as if the guards were searching for something. The fortune teller, realizing the truth, went to the emperor's sister's chambers. She found all the fish in the tank dead. The sister's actions confirmed that it was her potion that had caused the emperor's demise. The fortune teller was deeply troubled. Under the moonlight, she performed a ritual to see the future of the emperor and empress. To her shock, she saw the emperor's sister's death. She realized she had been wrong in her previous fortune-telling. The fortune teller now saw Empress Wu He standing before the throne, which looked like a tomb, holding a sword. Her eyes, as sharp as steel, hinted at a coming counterattack. 3 years ago, the emperor had been stationed at the northern border. In the court, a traitorous official, taking advantage of the fact that the empress had no heir, actively advocated for her dethronement. The empress's father and uncle feared for their family's well-being. To protect the family's interests, they conspired to send the empress's sister to the emperor's camp. If she could bear him a son, the Hu family's position would be solidified. Under the uncle's orders, a sorceress slipped a powerful sleep potion into the emperor's wine. While he slumbered, the sister snuck into his tent. Her slender hand traced his body. When he awoke, still dazed from the potion, he mistook his sister for the empress, the woman he loved dearly. The sister, though unhappy with the situation, didn't leave. She took advantage of the opportunity to sleep with the emperor, willing to do anything to replace her sister as empress. The next morning, when the emperor awoke, he questioned his sister about who had sent her, ordering her to leave the camp. Had he not spared her for her blood ties to the empress, he would have shown no mercy. 3 years later, on this very night, Empress Wu He found herself in a precarious position. Hours earlier, the emperor had died unexpectedly. The empress had no heir and was facing the threat of being dethroned by the court officials. To protect herself, the empress, disregarding social conventions, decided to marry the third prince, her brother-in-law. This was a bold strategy, meant to secure her position by marrying the brother of the deceased emperor and putting him on the throne. But the third prince was cruel and vicious, and the empress didn't want her people to suffer under his rule. She decided to find another prince and form an alliance. The third prince, learning of her plans, sent the White Tiger tribe after her. In the dark and dangerous forest, the empress's life was in danger. Meanwhile, in the palace, the head minister was investigating the emperor's murder. He believed the killer was a traitor in the emperor's inner circle. His men discovered Lily of the Valley, the ingredient for the poison, and a vial of sleeping potion in the emperor's sister's chambers. The potion was identical to the one used by the sorceress. The head minister suspected that the emperor's sister was the culprit, and the sorceress had given her the poison. While the head minister was searching for the killer, the sorceress secretly sent a pigeon with a message to the high priest. She told him that she had seen through the veil of time and witnessed the fourth prince becoming emperor. The high priest, confident that the opportunity had arrived, ordered all his followers within the palace to act. Confronted by the head minister, the sorceress confessed everything, revealing that she and the emperor's sister had been using each other. The sister wanted to become empress, and the sorceress wanted to be promoted to high priestess. The head minister apprehended the sorceress, intending to interrogate her personal information. When they were escorting her, a eunuch suddenly drew his sword and attacked. A fierce battle ensued, ending with the eunuch's men dead, but the sorceress badly wounded. Gasping for breath, she uttered her final words, revealing that the third star protecting the emperor was actually her. She tried to reveal something about the empress, but before she could finish, she died. With only 3 hours until dawn, the empress needed to get to the other prince's territory as quickly as possible. Faced with the White Tiger tribe's relentless pursuit, the captain suggested taking a boat, believing it would be safer. But the empress made a daring decision, choosing a dangerous, winding mountain path. Thick fog cloaked the forest. The chariot driver urged the horses forward, but the White Tiger tribe, skilled hunters who excelled in the darkness, caught up to them, firing an arrow towards the carriage. The empress, facing a barrage of arrows, remained calm. She removed her royal robes, donned armor, tied her hair up in a high bun, and stepped out of the carriage. Drawing her bow, she aimed at the enemy, her arrow finding its mark instantly. The enemy warrior fell from his horse. Then she fired a second and third arrow, each finding its target. The White Tiger tribe refused to surrender. They hurled grappling hooks towards the carriage, tearing the roof off. The empress took cover in front, and the captain fought with all his strength to pry the hooks loose. The carriage was half destroyed, but the empress managed to temporarily escape. Up ahead, there was a dam built of stone. The empress had deliberately chosen this treacherous path, remembering the emperor's warning that a single misstep could lead to death. As the enemy closed in on the edge of the cliff, the empress ordered the captain to cut the ropes holding the boulders in place. The rope snapped, sending tons of rocks tumbling down the mountain. The captain, with immense strength, pulled the empress away from the dam. The pursuing soldiers, caught off guard, were crushed by the falling rocks. Taking advantage of their momentary victory, the empress aimed her bow at the son of the White Tiger tribe leader, who was still trying to pursue them. Her arrow found its mark, and the son fell from his horse. The empress, finally safe for the moment, had managed to escape the immediate danger. Seeing his son die, the White Tiger tribe leader, consumed by grief, vowed revenge, swearing to kill the Empress. Though they had escaped their pursuers, the Empress remained vigilant, urging her driver to ride faster. She needed to reach the fourth prince's territory as soon as possible. After leaving the third prince, everyone assumed the Empress would seek the protection of the fifth prince, as he controlled a powerful army, capable of challenging anyone vying for the throne. The captain couldn't understand why she had chosen the fourth prince instead. She simply replied that she had something she needed to protect. At the hour of the ox, the Empress and her company arrived at another forest. They only needed to cross this forest to reach the fourth prince's territory, but their pursuers were close behind. The White Tiger tribe had discovered a torn piece of cloth tied to a tree branch, indicating that someone was guiding them. Following the trail, they regrouped and continued their pursuit. The Empress and her company tried to move quietly through the forest, but they heard a sound ahead. The White Tiger tribe had arrived. They concealed themselves in the shadows, keeping watch on each other. The Empress, seeing an opportunity, winked at her guards, firing a special arrow reserved for royalty. The enemy ducked to avoid it. But at that moment, a group of crazed people, who considered the forest sacred and invaders an offering to their gods, stormed into the woods, ferociously attacking the White Tiger tribe. Taking advantage of the distraction, the Empress and her company took a detour and escaped the forest. But after a fierce battle, the White Tiger tribe defeated the crazed group. The chieftain ordered his men to keep searching for the queen. Just then, the queen's sister stepped forward, promising to help the White Tiger clan find the fourth prince's palace and capture the queen. The queen, having already escaped into the forest, arrived at the fourth prince's palace. Upon hearing of her arrival, the fourth prince panicked and rushed to change his clothes, ordering his servants to bring him his finest attire. After dressing in his most dazzling garments, he finally met the queen. Behind a thin gauze curtain, the queen deliberately began to unbutton her dress, a defiant gleam in her eyes. The fourth prince, captivated by her alluring form, swallowed hard, struggling to control his desire. After getting dressed, the queen stepped out and sat across from the prince. He asked her what brought her to his palace. The queen remained silent, then intentionally let her chopsticks fall to the floor. The fourth prince bent to pick them up, and the queen slyly lifted her skirt, flashing him a suggestive smile. He ordered his servants to bring her a new set of chopsticks. The queen let out a soft sigh, placed her hand on his, and requested to share his chopsticks. Taking advantage of his flustered state, the queen recounted the king's passing and her precarious situation, pleading with the fourth prince, in a voice dripping with honey, to ascend to the throne and protect her. He couldn't hide his longing, but replied that, according to custom, the third prince should be the next in line for the throne. The queen used this as a pretext to propose a marriage to the sister-in-law, suggesting he marry her, becoming her husband. The fourth prince was stunned, his hand trembling so violently that he accidentally cut himself. The queen quickly brought his finger to her lips, a gesture that further inflamed his desire. She leaned closer, whispering that if they wed, he would not only become king, but also gain her as his queen. The fourth prince couldn't resist. He reached out to caress her face. Just then, a servant rushed in, reporting suspicious activity at the palace gate. The queen immediately rushed outside, only to discover her sister standing there. While she had been using her charm to secure the fourth prince, a storm was brewing in the capital. Taking advantage of the queen's absence, the chancellor went to a secret chamber known only to him. He lit incense and prayed before a hidden skeleton, the remains of his own grandfather. The chamber also held a chessboard meticulously set up by the chancellor. The chess pieces represented the princes and the queen, locked in a battle for power. He used this board to predict the queen's moves, certain she was under his control. Like everyone else, he assumed the queen, after abandoning the third prince, would turn to the fifth prince for support. But his servants reported she had bypassed the fifth prince's palace and gone directly to the fourth prince's territory. The queen's actions took the chancellor by surprise. Unknown to everyone, the chancellor was a wolf in sheep's clothing. As a child, while playing in the forest, he stumbled upon skeletal remains in an abandoned hut. His father revealed that they belonged to his grandfather, a prince from the kingdom of Duna, bordering Go-Yu-Geo, who had repeatedly defended the land from invaders. However, the family was accused of treason and executed on King Tiyo's orders. His grandfather was taken alive and suffered a brutal death. His father made him vow to avenge his grandfather and restore the glory of Duna. Upon becoming chancellor, he patiently waited for the right moment, feigning loyalty to the king. He had secretly approached the Donbai clan, one of the 5 powerful tribes of Goguryeo, revealing his lineage and seeking their alliance. In exchange for their help, he promised to assist them in regaining their lost territory. The chancellor then outlined his plan to the female head of the Donbai clan, hoping to exploit the king's isolation and incite unrest among the princes using the third prince as a catalyst. The chaos would allow him to seize power. It was he who planted the idea of marrying the sister-in-law in the queen's mind. The only variable he hadn't accounted for was the queen's choice of the fourth prince. This unexpected move prompted him to visit his secret chamber and analyze the chessboard. He was surprised to find that the queen had cleverly encircled his pieces. He realized, though her move seemed audacious, it was a strategic maneuver to build a new Goguryeo from scratch. After much flattery and persuasion, the queen convinced the fourth prince to agree to the sister-in-law marriage. His servant, concerned for the prince's well-being, urged him to reconsider, warning him that the third prince would not take this lightly. But the fourth prince was resolute, vowing to marry the queen and become king. Alone, he secretly gave a letter to his servant, who delivered it to the high priestess. The letter contained a promise to enter the palace after marrying the queen. The high priestess was ecstatic. Her family had been forbidden from entering the palace for 30 years after angering the previous king. Now, with the fourth prince poised to take the throne, she informed her followers that their time had come. As dawn approached, the queen ordered her servants to confirm the route back to the capital. Her sister, trying to slip out through a back door, was discovered. The queen, understanding her sister's motives, confronted her. Her sister confessed that she felt the queen had stolen her rightful place as queen. The queen scoffed, knowing her sister's true nature. Anything her sister disliked, she would throw at her, but when she found herself wanting it, she would try to take it back. She knew her sister had secretly attempted to seduce the king. Their masks fell, revealing their true selves. The queen's sister drew her bow, aiming at her. The queen retaliated, drawing her bow as well. In a flash, they both released their arrows. The queen's arrow found its mark, striking her sister in the heart. The queen showed no remorse, simply turning and walking away. The captain confirmed that the White Tiger clan was laying in wait outside the fourth prince's city, and venturing out would mean certain death. However, time was running out. After careful consideration, the queen decided to leave immediately, accompanied by the fourth prince. As soon as they departed, the White Tiger clan gave chase. Their chieftain fired an arrow at the queen, but upon approaching the target, they discovered they had killed someone else. The queen, anticipating this, had arranged for one of her handmaidens to wear her clothes and mislead their pursuers. With the White Tiger clan distracted, the queen galloped towards the docks. But soon, they realized they had been tricked and resumed their pursuit, raining down arrows, determined to kill the queen before she could board the boat. The queen and her companions fled desperately. Just then, a barrage of arrows came from the front, blocking the path of the White Tiger clan. The arrows were fired by the Chancellor's army. The queen, anticipating the Chancellor's intervention, had arranged for his army to intercept them. The Chancellor's soldiers attacked the White Tiger clan, unleashing a hail of arrows. After a fierce battle, the White Tiger clan suffered heavy casualties. The queen, drawing her bow, fired an arrow at the clan's chieftain, the man who had pursued her relentlessly. He was gravely wounded and collapsed to the ground. The boat reached the shore. The White Tiger clan, defeated, watched as the queen sailed away. At the hour of the dragon, officials gathered in the main hall. 12 hours had passed since the king's death, and many officials were suspicious, buzzing with whispers about the queen's whereabouts. Just then, the queen arrived on horseback. The palace doors swung open, and the queen strode onto the throne with an air of regal defiance. She announced to the assembled court that the king had died. Amidst the shocked nobles, a treacherous minister, seizing the opportunity, planned to exploit the situation and place his favored prince on the throne. But the queen declared that the heir had already been decided. To the astonishment of the court, she commanded the fourth prince to enter the main hall. The traitorous minister immediately protested, claiming the queen had no authority to appoint a successor. The queen, unfazed, countered by announcing her intention to marry the fourth prince. The court erupted in a cacophony of whispered discussions. Some protested, arguing that using a marriage to determine the king's heir was unprecedented. The queen thundered back, pointing out that even nobles engaged in such marriages, so why should the royal family be excluded? The third prince, seething with resentment, stormed into the hall, demanding to know by what right the fourth prince claimed the throne. The fourth prince faltered, unable to speak. The third prince drew his sword, intending to intimidate him, but he was stopped by the guards. With no other choice, the third prince retreated, but not before issuing a chilling threat. He vowed to turn the palace into a battlefield. After the third prince left, the queen declared to the court that the fourth prince was the new king of Goguryeo. Any defiance would be considered treason. The nobles, cowed by her fierce presence, submitted. The queen returned to her palace garden, only to find the lilies, her beloved flowers, burned to the ground. Her father explained that the king had suspected lily poisoning and, fearing the chancellor's suspicions, had been forced to burn the entire garden. Gazing at the desolate landscape, the queen's heart ached. Once, the king had personally planted lilies in this very garden, their color a perfect match for the dress she had worn when they first met. The garden was now destroyed, and everything was different. The peaceful days she had spent with the king were gone forever. Outside the court, the third prince was still scheming. The coronation hadn't happened yet, and he still had a chance to change everything. He feverishly sought allies to oppose the queen. He visited the first prince's territory, announcing the king's death. The first prince, overjoyed, ordered his forces to prepare for war, hoping to claim the throne alongside the fourth prince. The queen knew that war was inevitable. To counter this threat, the chancellor and the court assembled to plan their defense. War was looming. To bolster her forces, the queen wished to secure the allegiance of the southern cavalry tribe. But the third prince, acting faster, had already gained their support. Only 4 major tribes remained. The queen understood that victory in this war required the support of these remaining tribes. She dispatched envoys to the northern and western tribes, exposing the third prince's cruelty and reminding them of their ancestors' oath of loyalty to the previous king. The envoys reached the western and northern tribes. The northern tribe, outraged by the third prince's atrocities, decided to join the queen's cause. However, the western tribe, while outwardly agreeing, secretly sided with the third prince, planning to profit from the conflict. The chancellor personally met with the leaders of the remaining tribes, presenting them with the bronze sword, a symbol of the tribe's oath to the king. The tribes, initially inclined to honor their ancestors' vow, were then confronted with a letter from the third prince. It contained a single blood-stained sword, a blatant threat. After careful consideration, the tribes, though initially committed, chose to remain neutral, refusing to take sides. At the same time, the third prince ordered his troops to advance, their target being the capital. The situation was dire for the queen. The chancellor warned her that the odds of victory were slim. But the queen remained calm, certain that no battle was unwinnable. To secure victory in this desperate struggle, she ordered the construction of defensive lines at the city gates, arming the populace and gathering supplies for war. Anyone who could shoot a bow and arrow was ordered to defend the city walls. Everything was ready. Outside the walls, countless soldiers were assembling. The queen ordered her forces into battle readiness. As the enemy approached, the queen realized they weren't the third prince's rebel forces, but the fifth prince's armored troops. To their relief, the fifth prince raised the white flag of peace. He had come not to seize the throne, but to pledge his allegiance to the queen. The arrival of the fifth prince's armored forces provided much-needed support. Additionally, the northern tribe and the eastern priesthood arrived, demonstrating their loyalty to the queen. With these powerful allies, the queen could finally confidently face the first and third princes. Though the fifth prince had chosen the queen's side, he couldn't understand why she insisted on fighting. According to him, if she hadn't insisted on marrying the fourth prince, either the third prince or the first prince would have taken the throne, and things wouldn't have escalated to this point. Facing the fifth prince's questioning, the queen firmly declared that the first and third princes were incompetent and corrupt, even conspiring with enemy forces to grab power. Allowing them to win would mean surrendering Goguryeo to the invaders. Hearing this, the fifth prince drew his sword, vowing to defend Goguryeo alongside the queen. The storm was approaching. The rebel forces of the first and third princes were only half an hour away from the capital. The queen and the chancellor, again, sat down to play chess, simulating the battlefield. Though the fifth prince's armored forces provided a boost, the first and third prince's armies were well equipped and supplied. The outcome of the battle was uncertain. The chancellor reminded the queen that countless innocent people would suffer in this war. But she stood firm, believing that letting the first or third prince take the throne would plunge the people into misery. Of two evils, it was best to choose the lesser. As the ruler, she could only do this. The enemy was near. The queen shed her royal robes and donned armor, tying her hair back. Her father, concerned for his family's interests, tried to persuade her to support the third prince. The queen remained composed, her eyes unwavering. She was no longer a pawn, a piece on someone else's board. She was a queen, determined to defend her country. If her father dared to interfere, she would not hesitate to defy him. Before going into battle, she asked the chancellor if he stood with her. The chancellor, presenting her with a headband from her childhood, responded. While he harbored ambitions to revive his family's lineage, he shared the queen's ultimate goal. They both desired to build a new and better Goguryeo. With this shared purpose, the chancellor pledged his full support. Soon, the enemy arrived. The queen, in her armor, stood before her soldiers, ready to fight alongside them. Seeing this, their spirits soared. The queen drew her sword, yearning for a future where the people of Goguryeo would no longer be pawns, manipulated by others. For this dream, she vowed to defend them with her life, to build a new Goguryeo. Following the queen, the soldiers raised their weapons, roaring their unwavering loyalty. Across the battlefield, the first and third princes taunted and mocked the queen, convinced of their victory. They ordered their troops to bombard the city with stones. Countless boulders rained down on the gates, but the queen remained calm, her gaze sharp and resolute. She ordered her soldiers to open the gates, ready to lure the enemy into a trap. The film ends here. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great films. See you next time.